Hagen, and it's just you can go on and on with this list. Read the books, people. There's so much casting, but there was a casting miracle on here that took place, and it's crazy to think about how different the cast of The Godfather could have been. Now, a couple of interesting notes that I thought: Burt Reynolds was actually considered to play the part of Sonny, but Marlon Brando refused to work with him because apparently he was offended by Burt Reynolds' kind of interpretation of a Marlon Brando kind of figure on an episode of The Twilight Zone. Which was the fourth-season episode, The Bard. It's William Shakespeare. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible episode. Burt Reynolds appears in it, is kind of doing a Marlon Brando impression. Apparently, Brando was offended by this and refused to even, he's like, look, if Burt Reynolds is here, I'm not doing it. So that's why Burt Reynolds was not involved. Now, Anthony Perkins actually auditioned for the role of Sonny, which I thought was interesting. Now, I think he would have been a good Fredo, not so much Sonny. That would have been hard for me to see. But James Caan, he actually improvised a lot of his actions when he's going on his rage in the film. Like when they go out and when the photographers are taking the pictures of the wedding and all the license plates, he goes out there and he crashes the camera. That was not part of the script. And then he throws the guy money to pay him back for the camera because he says, "Where I came from, quote, you broke something, you replaced it, or you repaid the owner." So the honor among thieves even there. But and also during the fight with Connie's husband, he had a lot of things there. Actually injured the guy. Him and that actor didn't get along very well. So he chipped his elbow and broke his rib and threw a trash can lid at him. Just James Caan, almost as much a hothead as Sonny. Now James Caan actually he was angry that during the premiere of the film because he claimed that 45 minutes of him was cut from the film. So who knows about that? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of Sonny as it is, but that was interesting to see what actors think after the fact. Now, a couple other interesting casting things. Mia Farrow actually auditioned for the part of Kay, but of course went to Diane Keaton, as we all know. And Francis Ford Coppola, he was reluctant to let his sister, Talia Shire, audition for Connie. He felt she was too pretty for the part and didn't want to be accused of nepotism. We'll get to that when we get to Godfather Part 3. That's a story for another time. But other people who auditioned for this film, Sylvester Stallone, he auditioned for Carlo, he auditioned for Paulie, didn't make it, but he went to go become a writer after that and went on to a little movie called Rocky, which we'll talk about that franchise down the road sometime in here in Franchise Fatigue. And the character of Johnny Fontaine, this is a rumor, it's a Hollywood legend, but loosely based on this career of Frank Sinatra. Now, Coppola will deny this, and people have denied this, but Frank Sinatra thought it was based on him, and he was very offended by that, so they had some words about that. Just so many layers and so many actors and so many characters here. And then finally, this is a very, very interesting part of casting to me. Robert De Niro was originally cast as Paulie, but Al Pacino had accepted a role in Bang the Drum Slowly, which is coming out the next year in 1973. Coppola wanted Pacino to be in Godfather. They wanted him to be Michael so bad that they released De Niro to be Pacino's replacement on that film so Pacino could come be Michael in The Godfather. So again, the casting merry-go-round continues. But so a couple other small bits of cheer before we get into it. Like I said, this is The Godfather, right? It's one of the most documented famous films of all time.
You earned your paycheck this week.
I know, right? So this is hard work, my friends. Now,
and breathe.
Right. So, the famous horse head in the bed scene, right? Coppola didn't care for that scene in the novel, but he recognized it was too iconic to delete it. So during the rehearsals, they used a false horse head during the scene. But according to John Marley, who played the producer there, he didn't know they were going to use a real horse head for the actual take. So his screams, they're actually real. Those are real reactions because he's been working with a prop through all these rehearsals, and then it comes time to film, there's a real horse head in his bed. Now, people were upset about, it being a horse head, but that actually came from a pet food company where the horses were already killed. They were already being chopped down into dog food and cat food and all that kinds of things. So they didn't kill any horse specific for this. They just took something that would have been repurposed into something else. So I love animals too, guys. Let's not get offended. Now, during the assassination at the restaurant where Michael, kills the two guys, that was actually supposed to be an intermission at that point. And you can kind of tell that that's how the music kind of crescendos and it comes back to all this news updates and that kind of thing. But Coppola thought it would actually slow down the pace of the film, so he makes the intermission. Now he picks up the intermission for Godfather Part 2. At this point, this is the mid-'70s, so the intermissions were kind of going out of vogue. Now, last bit of trivia. The Fabrizio, Michael's bodyguard in Italy, he sets the bomb in the car that kills Michael's first wife. Then that character disappears from the narrative, disappears from the story. There was a scene filmed where he's killed at the end of The Godfather when Michael's wrapping up all family business. That was deleted from the film. It was going to be repurposed in Godfather Part 2, also deleted from that film, but in the Godfather saga, the chronological version where they combine the first and second films and put all the scenes in chronological order, that scene is back, and Michael does get his revenge off the death of his first wife from that character, Fabrizio. So there you go, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on Franchise Fatigue. I hope you guys enjoyed the Godfather Trivia Hour. There you go. And there's so much more, too. So it's a fascinating movie, as we all know. Go look it up. You could spend hours and hours researching this. I sure as hell did.
Yeah.
if I can add something, too. I don't know if it's in your notes. I don't know if it's in your notes, Zach, but you mentioned Stallone audition for some parts in the movie. Mm-hmm. Stallone's godfather, who had a bit part in the Rocky movie, also played in The Godfather. He was Don Cheech in Godfather 2. Mm. Who was Pantangeli's right-hand guy, and he was also in Godfather 1 as well. Mm-hmm. So he played one of the henchmen for, one of Clemenza's henchmen towards the middle of the movie.
That's some awesome trivia, Zach. That's a really good job. That's some great stuff. I haven't seen these movies since I bought the DVDs in 2001. I bought the DVD box set. And I remember watching all the movies, watching all the commentaries, watching all the bonus features. Yep, that's the one I got there. Chris is holding it up. And it's a really good set. I recommend it. I don't know how the Blu-ray versions have changed. I know it's the first DVD I've watched in a while, and so I know that the quality isn't quite there. Like, it looks a little grainy and whatnot. But honestly, it still does look really good. It's in full 1:7:8 to 1 aspect ratio. So it's really, really a beautiful looking movie. And it really looks the part of the 40s, it really looks like that time. So I think you did a really good job. Now, Chris, let me ask you. So when we mentioned that we're doing this, as I said earlier, you wanted to put your name in for this role, this guest spot on this podcast here. Why is that? What is it about the Godfather series that you wanted to talk about so much?
The Godfather series is so iconic. It's a word that's loosely used in today's films, but when you think back to the Godfather, it's so iconic in a way that it transcends TV, movie, and in nowadays social media too. It's one of the most quoted movies in all of film. People say the movie's great. Granted, people's opinions on what makes a movie great, and even with the Academy Awards, being Best Picture, somebody had to have an opinion of that. But if you take away the actors and you just leave, and I owe this to you, Brandon, because your podcast about scores actually had me look at movies in a different light. If you take away the actors and the speech and you put the scores down, just leave the scores as it is, and you take the set design and the amount of time it took for the set design, from the cars to the costume dresses to, again, the movie scores, that makes an iconic movie. It's also iconic, like I said, you go from TV to social media, you hit it big when Tom Hanks actually quotes you in one of his movies as well, like he did for You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, when he says Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday. That was a quote from the book. That was a quote from the movie, and a very obscure scene from the movie too. It's not one of the famous ones. Yeah. So when they're quoting like obscure one-off lines from the movie, you've hit it big. They're not just hitting the big lines there, Chris. Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. And even as we were talking before this podcast a week or so ago, we were using Godfather gifs or gifs, however you want to say the word. That's pure iconic pay tribute to the movie. When you can recite a line and it sticks with you, and sometimes the lines you actually use in common conversation. And the score itself, I mean, you can just listen to the movie and you can feel the tense and the release and the romance throughout this movie without having to look at the movie itself and listen to the words of the actors.
Yeah, like it is very iconic. I used to sell electronics and televisions and home theaters and stuff, and I was the manager of the store, and I actually have a small wooden poster of the first Godfather movie that I used to hang above my office door. And when they really wanted to close the sale, they'd get me, and I'd use this spiel. I'm like, they call me the Godfather. Look at this over here. You know why? Because I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, right?
There it is.
Try and like close it, try and sell the TV, right? But yeah, like these are really classic movies. And I remember that the first time I was aware of the Godfather movies, I was very young. My parents used to rent VHS movies from the local video store. It wasn't a Blockbuster, but it was something. And they were actually watching Godfather 3. And I just remember them watching this movie. I don't know why I remember them watching this movie. I didn't watch it with them. I just remember that they rented this movie. And I'm like, because it was the third part of a movie, which was odd to me at that age. But, like there's so many classic things in this. And I mean, even the book itself is fantastic. Have you guys read the novel at all?
To be honest, I have not.
I read the novel a long time ago.
I haven't, but rewatching these for this podcast, like I'm thinking about just getting the audiobooks and maybe listening to them just to kind of go back to the source material, because it's fascinating about how much more of the world is even in there than are in these long movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the book is really good. I burned through it. Like it's a kind of a long novel, but I went through it really, really quick because it is really well written. Now, let's talk about some of the great scenes in this. I mean, let's talk. We should probably talk with one of my favorite scenes is the wedding scene at the beginning and how much it takes. And I really love what Coppola brought to this film by showing these. And frequently in the bonus features to the DVD, I remember him saying these are like family movies. They're like home movies. This was like filming my family and filming home movies. He said that quite often in the bonus features. And I can really see that. I mean, this is more elaborate a wedding than I've ever been to. And I think it was probably more elaborate a wedding than anybody's ever been to that's talking or listening to this. Like it's, because again, they have millions of dollars. This family had so much money to throw at it. But I mean, I love seeing the culture on display. You've got the coolest part to me is when they bring the mom up, the Godfather's wife, and she starts singing, and then they bring that other old man up, and I'm like, to me, that's family, and I just loved that scene a lot, and that scene really sticks out in the film to me. What did you guys think of the whole wedding sequence? Zach, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, I think it's impressive that for 27 minutes, the first 27 minutes of this movie is this scene. I mean, it's different components of the scene, but you're all at this one event, at this wedding. And you're not bored. There's so many characters. There's so much going on. There's so many layers to what's going on. You have what the shady business going on inside Don Vito's office. You have the families showing up. You have Michael, your eventual main character and protagonist, just kind of unassumingly showing up. It's so understated when he shows up, but he really sticks out like he doesn't belong, and that's kind of the whole point of the movie, to see his transformation from this young, fresh-faced guy that got back from war who doesn't want anything to do with his family to who he becomes like the figurehead of the whole family by the end. And yeah, there's so many characters, and you want to know more about all of them, and you could spend another 30 minutes at this wedding probably if you really wanted, because it's so rich. There's, like you said, there's the happiness and joy of the dancing and the partying and the singing outside, but there's all the business going on behind closed doors, and you really get to learn like the inner workings of like the honor among thieves and the code this mafia has. Like the first guy comes to him and he wants him to kill somebody for disfiguring his daughter, and he's like, "Hey, that's not justice. They're not, your daughter's not dead. So we'll beat him up a little bit, we'll scare him, but we're not gonna kill him." You're like, okay, these guys have code, they have morals and stuff, so they're bad guys, but there is the honor among thieves. And it's just a great setup for the rest of the movie. Like, and it really, you're sold. Like you were in for as long as this movie runs. You were in with all these characters now because of what's set up in this sequence.
To echo what both of you guys said, the wedding scene is a fantastic scene. No matter what size of the wedding, though, what's the ambiance around it is probably what's comparable to what you see on screen, I think. It's not so much because it's so grandiose. You can have a small, intimate wedding and still have the nice times and still have the laughs and still have the fun. going back to what you said, Zach, it's business behind closed doors. When you look at the actual Godfather image, you see the marionette strings and the mafia